Yo, what up? It's TV Anon. TV Anon here. Yeah, I wanted to do Lost in Space. It's getting harder and harder to do these videos, but I can't let this one go by. There's just so much going on in this show. Um, let's just take a look at the intro, the title sequence. I mean, you could just spend a whole hour just talking about this title sequence. So, obviously in the reboot of all the sci-fi stuff going around these days. I mean, The Expanse just started up again. There's a hell of a lot of shows that are based completely in space, and that have us sort of imagining our world as a spacefaring civilization. And I guess the plot in this thing is that some asteroid hits, something happens to the Earth, and that people start to leave. You can just see they're continuing to bore this idea into our consciousness that we're going to be getting off this rock, and that there'll be great adventures to visit us in the future. And this is a reboot, obviously, from years ago, so you can tell how long they've been at this, because it's basically the same exact concept: a family lost in space and going on adventures, looking to find all sorts of crazy stuff. And it's a family, we can have compassion for them. So, but the whole title sequence is filled with these images of older rocket launches. It's hard to say exactly when in the future this is set. Let's read this. But we see a lot of this the moon landing, older rockets and that kind of stuff. The other point I want to point you at, because I keep seeing these everywhere. It doesn't even matter what network, what channel, what demographic you're gonna be. I'm seeing these everywhere. And it's this little blue. It's that blue line up in the corner. If we let it play here in the title sequence, it's up there. We can see it scrolling upwards. And it happens a couple times. See, there's another one going right there. And, since I haven't started really collecting these yet, you might just say, oh, it's just the lens flare effect. That's just a cool kind of blue light. But there's something about that color. It's a very specific blue, deep blue kind of, it's like fire almost, and it seems like it's symbolizing or even possibly having a deeper psychological effect. Because this isn't the only title sequence that I've seen specifically the same blue color. And if you saw Beyond, there are also similar sort of lens flares of the same color that come up throughout the intro. And as you can see, it happens over and over again. There's another one there. And that's sort of the end of the title sequence. But you can see it's all over this. There's one right there, coming from different angles. But as you can see, there's blue, there's white there, but these blue lines are always going to be horizontal. That's what I've noticed. And you'll get the same exact color, it seems, when you point a camera direct at a different light source, like a truck lights or a flashlight or something like that. It'll get the same exact color, but it seems like, it would be something that's easy to edit out in post-production. And so they're very purposefully leaving these colorations in there, and it's still trying to get to the bottom of exactly what effect they're having. But it's interesting that they're putting it in multiple title sequences. I think so, at least. So again, as usual, the plot is kind of irrelevant. They're on, they get crash landed on this planet, just wormhole. And they're trying to get back, but the point seems to be more just to be able to rehash these same symbols of what's on the list. You should really start making a chart. It's consciousness transfer, alien technology, alien intelligence, and obviously we see here this is the main, I'd say the main character of the show is this robot, which they have. It's sort of like it's like he gets amnesia because he crash lands and he gets damaged, and he somehow, I mean, this part doesn't really make any sense, but he gets a sort of hard reset to his neural wiring, and gets to relearn morality from that little boy, who turns out to be Will Robinson. I guess it's sort of a prequel to the original show. But again, yeah, crash landing, alien technology. Let me see, these all the kind of symbolism on the alien ship. I wonder if we can get an image of it, because I think this is the planet. Oh, this is the planet they're on. So would it show it? And this is also really interesting, I think, from what I've been seeing around the interwebs and YouTube. If you look into anything about Nibiru, or the black hole sun, or black holes, or there's a lot of talk about that kind of stuff on the internet. Whether there is Planet X or some sort of other planet that's sort of right next door to us, and that they've been hiding with sun simulators and some sort of mesh, and all sorts of banana stories that you've been hearing around the internet. But to parallel all of that, the storyline actually has a black hole in this solar system, and I should really go back to the previous episode where she, the mom goes up and sees this. She sees that there's radiation being stolen off of the star. So basically, this whole planet's going to die, and that's why they're so urgent to get off. But what along this whole theme of releasing in fiction what's actually really happening. I almost wouldn't be surprised if that really was the case here on Earth, that if there was some sort of black hole, someplace in the inner solar system that was leeching off the energy of the sun, and that's what the sun simulators and all that other stuff was sort of needed for. But that seems like just the kind of like audacious, almost risky thing that they would do, is that to put the actual reality, there really is a black hole sun. And that's why we get eclipses, and that's what's in the center of our solar system, and that's why there's such a push and all of this space propaganda to get us into a sort of spacefaring mindset, to get off this planet, because this is really our planet, and that this is sort of the clock that we're up against to get out of here. So I thought that was an interesting concept. And again, it's just the same format as in most television. Pull at the heartstrings, get the family happening, and you will be able to insert any sort of other sort of messaging. And again, some absolutely gorgeous. It's super high budget, obviously Netflix. Beautiful sort of CGI of the planet. Don't get bogged down in the details. I want to focus on just a couple things. Make this smaller. Okay. Right. So this is the final episode of the season, the first season. So there's a lot of back and forth. All the characters, you don't need to really know about all the characters, but it's interesting that the family is good, right? But we see this character is sort of the evil. She's a sociopath, and the whole show is also her just sort of continuing to stab people in the back and use them for her own gain. And we're obviously supposed to see her as the evil character in the show. But she's also very, it's very cunning, it's very intelligent, and it's interesting to put such a sociopathic character on television, because I found myself, while I was watching this, starting to have those sorts of thoughts that this sociopathic character would have, which would be, lying to people, or misdirecting or misrepresenting your views or ideas to get people to do what you want, basically. And I guess, that is sort of the deal with fiction. You're going to have to show bad behavior to show people that they shouldn't be doing that kind of thing. But I guess it's really up to you then, if you side with this evil character or not, or if you side with the family. Obviously the show is sort of built that she's a terrible person and always tends to murder people just because she's scared, and that's we're supposed to think that's bad, but it's almost like she has a sort of Luciferian, it's just me. I'm out to protect myself sort of attitude, which is interesting. It's like she's the bad guy. She's the bad guy. We're not supposed to act like her, obviously. That's sort of the message. But at the same time, just by putting that behavior online or in the show where people are picking up on it and possibly taking on that behavior themselves in their real lives. And that's just really interesting to me. Well, to get to the bottom of that, I guess you can't really fully control which characters, which people are going to identify with. But certain archetypes are going to resonate with large parts of the population. And I guess that's a good sort of choice to go with. But, it's a very interesting character. Let's just leave it at that. Right. And then there's a lot of them in space trying to get protected. A lot of just sort of beautiful imagery flying through space. It's the space station. So again, we're bombarded by these types of imagery. Them in the cockpit, on the bridge, and this torus, I think it's called a torus ring, that artificial gravity idea. This is a spaceship design that's been around forever, and here it is in this show. And so, hopefully I'll be around long enough, but I'm really going to be really curious if they ever do launch some sort of interstellar, planetary travel, if it will use some of these similar designs, and whether, people are going to buy that or not. But it's obviously being pre-programmed here, that we should think that this is what a interstellar spaceship's going to look like, or should look like. And I've been hearing that since birth, basically. So it's interesting, this any show about space, to sort of analyze the imagery and the stuff they showed us and how realistic it's all become, to really get us deep in the feeling of what it's like to be in space, driving spaceship, etc., etc.
Entry angle is exceeding parameters.
Mom, trust her.
500 approach.
Are you crazy? You'd commit.
Right, and it's all mixed in with the human element. They're playing each other off each other, playing to each other's fears. These two strong women are basically trying to out maneuver each other. And, obviously the parent is going to prevail because she has much more wisdom than the fearful doctor here, because she gets tricked into getting locked in this sort of centralized spot. And again, I really don't need to go through the whole plot, but I just wanted to look at a couple more symbols here. Come on. And so I'm trying to, you notice it, there's these very brief sort of lens flares, and this kind of thing, that's not that blue light. It's not a good example. I really have to write them all down, because I'll see them. I'll see them, and it's unmistakable. Even this, that's a blue, kind of more circular, but it's not the same horizontal lines that I've been seeing in the title sequence in many other shows. But I've seen it in this show. I would just need to, that's what I'm saying. You need like a full team for this. You could take notes and really track, some of these symbols where they're coming in. This is a good spot to check out the other symbol that I keep seeing all over the place, which is the hexagon. So you see here in the roof, it's a series of hexagons, and you're like, so what? It's just hexagons, right? But just this week alone, and it's really only if you're looking for this kind of thing, but just this week alone in Legion, and also many other shows, Blind Spot, a couple other shows, I keep seeing these repeating hexagons in the background, either as an architectural element. In Blind Spot, it's on her hand as a tattoo. It can be anything. Usually sort of an architectural design element. But that's a very easy way to sneak all of your symbols in. When it's like, yeah, it's just the ceiling. That's just a light. That's just a. But why would they keep picking hexagons? And I think there's definitely a deeper sort of more complex reasoning there. Alone, the word hex. Let me just sort of leave it at that. But it's I'm trying to get at both of these things, the blue lights and the hexagon. It's way too repetitive to be an accident. It is in way too many scenes, in way too many shows, spanning genres, spanning networks, spanning production houses, and that is the kind of thing that makes me look up and say, hey, especially and yeah, again, you won't really notice it unless you're watching a sort of absurd amount of television. But if you're really watching most of the scripted stuff, you'll also start to see some of these symbols. So, again, mixed in with the more interpersonal, the robots trying to get out and outsmart them all. Right, because the robot used to be paying attention to Will, and now he's paying attention to the doctor, and so that's again, another. This is the same symbol in a bunch of these other shows, Agents of Shield, et cetera, where there is a cyborg or some sort of robot with a human level AI consciousness that then people in the show, characters in the show, are fighting for dominion over. And it's again, it's just another one of those symbols. Like, I guess they say that sentient robots haven't been created, but they're definitely sure preparing us for that being the case, because this is just one example in a long string of many sentient robots. Going back to the original of this show, this sort of space. I don't know, space propaganda. There should be a better word for it. This whole genre basically has been going, and you can trace that all the way back Arthur C. Clarke and the really early stuff. It's all been sort of piggybacking and copying on top of each other. I think the Dyson Sphere came from that era, or not Dyson Sphere. The what is that thing called? The toroidal. Where the spaceship's round, and so it makes artificial gravity. But that's a really old idea that didn't come from her or anybody here in Lost in Space. It's sort of all just rehashing old symbols, and so that's what really makes me start to think, like, where are the new ideas? Where's the new research? Why is it just repeating things that were basically fiction at the time? Alright, so she's falling there. They figure out the dad's gonna get back, but there's this whole thing with the family, the dad being separated, tears in space. I wish you could find another one of those lens flares. Oh, maybe this one right here. Right, but this is the part I actually wanted to get at. Oh yeah, this is a good part too. Okay, so let me just play this. Right, so the robot is sort of, I forgot, gotten out, climbed out. The robot's coming back, and at the beginning of the show, the robot looked like this other robot that's climbing in, and he changed forms to apparently, make it a little easier on the humans to not freak out, so they could see a form that's more like them, not this creepy ass multi-armed demon robot. And again, this is yet another symbol. It's just all over every single show, nonstop, where the eyes are being colored, either changed to black, changed to red, something about the pupils changing. This idea of sort of demonic possession. And here we have it right here with robots. These are obviously from some sentient larger race. And again, yet another symbol that's come down from futurology, that eventually the most intelligence-seafaring civilizations will convert their consciousness to robots so they can go and explore the universe without fear of death. because this robot has obviously been built with some sort of self-healing, self-replicating process, so he can get hurt and get damaged, but his consciousness will survive, at least in a sense. And that's what we're getting to in this scene, which is yet again the universal theme that apparently is in every single episode. Family's always going to be there, and obviously this whole show is going to be about family, because you got a family going through space, and it's going to be about, choosing the family over the mission. Are we going to help each other? And that's a lot in this episode. They actually miss the boat because they're going to save the dad. So that's again the lesson that we're supposed to learn. Always got to go with family. Family's got to be the way to go, even if it sort of screws up the mission. But I mean, it wasn't actively hurting anybody. But yeah, the family sacrifices, or are thinking at the time that they're sacrificing everything basically to stay with the dad and their father. They end up getting out of it, obviously, because it's a happy ending. But just that idea of that, yeah, that's the moral decision that you should make when you are in that situation. You left your father behind, or your father's stranded someplace, you're going to go pick him up. And if it means getting fired from your job, if it means something else, really just sort of damaging, there's almost no limit on what you should be willing to do for your family. And that's just, that message is in everything, non-stop. And so on that subject of family, this is the robot's family. This was the other robot that I guess was locked in his crashed vehicle, and so they sort of come back. Forgot exactly how he gets in there, but they're gonna come and confront the family. So you got the evil one, but they're talking to each other. They're lovers or something. Yeah, and she's able to convince him to be evil again.
Why is it pointing at us? No. You stay away from them.
And she hurts the mom. Yeah, she hurts the mom, and they melt the thing. We will see this. You see the football thing. Right, because they are in space, they're in orbit, but they have gravity. They have gravity in their ship, even though they're in orbit. I went too far. Let's see, blast that. Just want to see. So you see this little football thing, right? So that is apparently the drive or whatever was powering their spaceship that they desperately need to whatever they need. I guess they're gonna jump. That's right. But it's also really interesting. This is yet another symbol of this. This seems to be something that has to be real, because it's just in too many shows for it not to be. I mean, it's running in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. right now with this whole concept of gravitonium, that gravity is not a force. It's something that you can capture and contain and harvest. And in Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., it's gravitonium. It's this kind of pulsating silvery liquid that you can actually ingest, apparently. That was a weird episode. But that's actually the source of gravity, and that's what causes gravity, not what we're used to thinking gravity is caused by. And so here's yet again in this show, this little football, this again alien tech, something way beyond us. They're able to develop this, and here it is in this little football. That's basically gravitonium. But I mean, they have no name for it in this show. But that's basically what it is. It's an element or something. So they found out some way to capture and store the power of gravity, so it can be localized. And so just by having this little football on the ship, it is giving the entire ship its own gravity. And that's just a sort of wild concept. I mean, if you went up to anybody and said that, especially scientists, you'd be like, obviously not. No, gravity's like force. It's gravity that's coming from the sky. But in TV show after TV show, I'm telling you, keep pushing this idea that it's something you can harness, something that you harvest, and something that you can store with a mechanical device, which is a crazy concept. But again, at the heart of any sort of electrogravitic UFO sort of technology. And from what I've heard, it's basically a known fact in certain communities that this is something that's possible, that you can sort of harness gravity, control it, store it. But something they're not willing to come out with and say yet, just straight up. But if they put it in all the fiction, they can sort of soft pedal it. And I think that's the case. It's been the case with all of this space stuff, is to put it in the fiction. And as the years go by, it just gets more and more normal to see this sort of stuff. So when it finally comes out, either they say, they figured it out, oh, this is the stuff from sci-fi. When really it was the other way around. The sci-fi is based on what they've already created and not some sort of, forward-thinking dream that just happened to line up with reality down the road. I want to get to this final scene, though. So, right, so the robot has turned evil. It's going to get his gravitonium, whatever that thing is, and take it back to their ship, and they're going to go live happily ever out there. But with his other alien girlfriend or whatever. But Will is feeling damaged. He threw him aside, and he got his suit torn open. And we can see him glitching out, right? Because he's supposed to kill him. They're all supposed to kill him. But then, and this is again, this message is also all over the place. So he had his family, right? The robot. It's him and his robot girlfriend. And he, because of the bond that he created over the course of the show with this human that taught him so much about nature and kindness, and Will's a good guy. Because of how good he is, he's able to fully actually break through all of his original programming and turn against his own family. And I guess that's another core concept in a lot of this stuff, where you are. How do you even get on top of this? How do you it's possible for you to change family or turn your back on the mission, turn your back on another family and join a new family. And this is exactly what the robot chooses here in this case, because, he just throws him over there. I thought he throws him out the window. And then it's just like, oh, Will, my best friend, I'm going to heal you. He was able to break through his programming, and he remembers all the good times. And so, just more sort of moralizing. This is again why you should be a nice guy and act right, because I don't know, you never know how people are going to remember it or treat you in the future based on those actions. So you might as well just go ahead and be a good guy all the time. And also that, we're supposed to think of this robot as making the right decision, because his girlfriend's obviously psycho, like shooting all these laser beams, and he attacked him once, and he's turned against them, there, and so now they're just fighting forever. So he wasn't a very good family to begin with. So if your family is evil, then you should turn against them and join the Robinsons, I guess is the moral that we're learning here in this one. Right, so they fight, and he throws him off the cliff. And that's supposed to be, at the beginning of the show, that was all he cared about, this other robot. It was the two of them together. But he's learned so much about humanity and morals that it's changed his entire being. And just that little snippet there, how I could be describing thousands of TV shows and episodes and movies and everything, because this is just. It's a very, very common story, and that's what you got to start asking yourself: what are the parallels when it's cross genre, cross demographic, cross network, cross everything, and you're still seeing the same stories? Those, I think, are the ones to pay attention. So again, here, The hexagons, they're reflecting in his forehead. They were on the ceiling. They're there on the ceiling. But you got to think about this too, like from a post-production standpoint. Obviously, they're throwing money away like there's no tomorrow, because this is just, it's big budget Netflix, so they got to go ahead and do that. Because all of the CGI is costing money, costing massive amounts of money every single second of this. But I want to get back here, so I can kind of see it there. Right, you can see it here, and this is that's something that they had to. That probably wasn't actually in the original reflection. It's possible, but there's a really good chance that they had to go in there and clean that up and possibly recomposite it, project it, have like a secondary frame there just to get those hexagons there right on his forehead. I think it's very meaningful that it's the hexagons on top of his forehead. Again, I can't speak exactly to what these hexagons are meaning, but I just keep seeing it episode after episode. I bet if I turn something on tonight, I'm going to see it again. The hexagons, the blue lights. And then that's basically it. I mean, there's a couple more dramatic, heartfelt moments to get the family back together. The last one will walk the bad guys in the closet, but everybody's still going to have their chance to get back out, because now they're prepping for the next season. But that right there, that was a good symbol for that sort of self-healing capable robot. And this is again not the first self-healing capable robot I've ever seen in television. It's just another symbol that is there all the time. They get sucked through the wormhole, and I guess they're getting ready for season 2, because they're going to the robots world, and I'm sure there'll be a bunch of interesting stuff there. But again, I mean, I think that's it. Just sort of documenting these symbols. It's the rectangle. It's the hexagons. And the blue lights there. So there's a little blue light right there, isn't there? Right there, you can see it coming out. Yeah, there's a really good one. Let's play it one more time.
Is everything okay?
I don't know. It's like we lost control of the ship.
Alright, they're obviously going to go back home, because that's the alien guy. He made this wormhole appear. There's that blue light, yeah. And it's vertical again, sticking up the sides. There it starts to get really intense. That's that color. It's the same color from the opening sequence. And I'm just doing this one episode, but you could find it in all 10 episodes of this entire series. These blue, specifically this color. You can't tell me this one's just regular lens flare from a car headlight, because this is a wormhole, and they had to build this. They had to composite this. This, as with everything in this image, required a lot of work and is on purpose. That's all I'm really trying to say here. Yeah, and that's going to do it for this episode in this season. I mean, that's the end of that. That's the end of that. I'm going to head out. Hope you like this episode, though. See you soon.